Hello! A while back I had a guy in the comments who wanted me to do a Megadeth discography breakdown, didn't have anything better to do, so I did it. And then in that video I asked if anyone had any other suggestions for discography rundowns, and only one guy had a suggestion, this guy named Doyle Death. Shout out to Doyle Death. The band he suggested was Testament, so I figured, hell, why not? Testament's a band that I've always had sort of lukewarm feelings about overall. I know. When I was younger and getting into thrash, man, I remember looking up bands, and it seemed like Testament was almost like universally universally praised in like the circles I was hanging around on the internet, like in metal discussions and shit. I had signed up for like various music discussion boards, including the Thrash Unlimited forum, even though at the time I knew basically nothing about thrash. I liked, the big four. I managed to hear like Exodus, DRI, Suicidal Tendencies, handful of bands, so I was pretty much a noob, and I noticed it was popular for a lot of thrashers to be like, Testament should be part of the big four, or that, some people said that Testament was better than all the big four bands. And, the anticipation was pretty high, man, because, I thought they had some sweet artwork, good band name, good image, good logo. And then to top it all off, you had all these like self-proclaimed experts on the internet saying like, nah, man, the New Order is better than Ride the Lightning, Rust in Peace, and everything, And this is before Testament made their comeback album too, the Formation of Damnation, because so there was like some mystique in the fact that they seemed to be like kind of inactive, and they didn't seem to have their own version of like Risk, Diabolus and Musica, Saint Anger, or like that stupid Anthrax record with like a giant ball of garbage on the cover. Whatever that one's called. You know what I'm talking about. So I looked up some Testament tunes on YouTube and MySpace, and this was when not every band had, most bands weren't putting up their whole albums on YouTube yet, so I watched some of like the music videos of like some of the hit Testament songs from like the 80s, if you could call them hits, like relative to other bands, and I liked what I heard. And, if I wanted to hear an album without paying for it back then, I'd usually use the Pirate Bay, because I had like uTorrent and all that stuff, man. What's funny is that even that seems like a major pain in the ass nowadays with like streaming and shit. But I can actually buy CDs now. When I was 12, 13, I had $0, So anyway, man, I ended up getting the Legacy, which I liked. And I still like that one today. And I also got my hands on a cassette copy, actually, of Practice What You Preach. And which even at the time, man, it struck me as a tad bit generic. And, that same year, might have even been the same, like, summer vacation, man. I heard Death Angel, Ultraviolence, Creator Pleasure to Kill, Dark Angel, Darkness of Sins. That was the first year I heard like Death, Atheist, Deicide. I heard Altar's Madness, Morbid Angel around this time, and I liked it all more than Testament, man. I had this feeling that like I should like Testament more than I actually did, And as time went on, I eventually listened to every Testament album just out of curiosity. And I mean, with badass album covers like Souls of Black, you kind of go in expecting it to be like better and heavier than it actually is. And to make this video, I've been going through the Testament albums, just kind of letting them play as I'm walking around the house doing other shit, and you might be assuming I'm like a Testament hater or something with all this shit I've been talking, but I mean, I've seen them live a few times. Every time I've seen them, I was always there for like another band, but I'd still rather see Testament on stage than like, I don't know, a deathcore band, metalcore band, something like that, I mean, seeing an old thrash band with good musicians is still a pretty fun time. Have a few beers, stuff like that. And Testament do play a lot of like their kind of anthemic sort of their old thrash like hits that every metal fan knows. So that's always fun. I will say, man, those headlining Testament sets can be a little much for me. Like the first time I saw them was that tour they did with Overkill and Flotsam and Jetsam. I actually missed Flotsam and Jetsam, but Overkill kicked ass. But man, Testament came on and it felt like they played like 10 new songs, man, or new at the time. And I mean, all the older dudes there seem to love it, but and I know most of the older metal fans love the Modern Testament records, but most of that shit is pretty forgettable to me. But all right, man. So on with the discography. I wrote some notes. I usually don't do like a legit script, but got some notes here because they've got a lot of records, man. Finally getting to the point here. So first one's Legacy from '87. I don't really need notes for that one. 87, big year for thrash, for metal in general. To me, man, this is 100% their best record. Most of the tunes are pretty memorable. To me, this is an album where Testament has like a distinct personality of their own. Like Chuck Billy hasn't quite settled into that. Not trying to offend anyone, but that kind of poor man's James Hetfield voice that he would adopt later on. Album's got pretty raw production, but it still sounds like professional and tight. Alex Skolnick, man, he's killer. As we go on through the albums, he's usually the most interesting part of the albums he plays on. Like for me, I think "Do or Die" was actually the first song I heard off this one, man. Before I actually got the whole record. "Raging Waters" is sweet. I don't have much of a problem with this one, man. Not one of my all-time favorite records, or even one of my favorites of '87, even, man. But this record and the fact that it's fairly accessible, they're a Bay Area band, that probably helped like cement their, for lack of a better word, like legacy in metal, I guess. And has anyone noticed like that main riff in "Alone in the Dark"? Isn't it just like Overkill, Rotten to the Core, and Slayer, Antichrist, right? But am I crazy? Anyway, man, up next. All right, so New Order from '88. See a bit more of a streamlined thrash sound. Some of those kind of heavy metal speed metal elements from the Legacy are kind of cast aside. You get more of those like harmony chant things, like obey. Like a lot of bands were kind of the lighter thrash bands were doing a lot of that stuff at the time, which I do like. Disciples of the Watch, that's a good song. It's a pretty solid record. Last time I listened to this one was the day I actually saw that Testament Exodus Death Angel tour in my town, and I was already kind of drunk early in the day listening to it. And anytime I hear this record, I'm like, oh yeah, it's not that bad, but things are beginning to get a little generic here and there, and Chuck Billy kind of starts doing the James Hetfield thing on this one. So '89, man, there's third album, Practice What You Preach. This one, I know a lot of people like it, man. This one's almost kind of like an AI generated late '80s California thrash record to me. It's kind of like that second Evil Dead album that no one fucking remembers. They really ramp up like the Metallica-isms, Megadeth-isms. I don't know, man. It's just getting a little generic on this one, man. They're ticking off all the boxes. They got the anthemic title track with the music video, and I do like that song actually, but they also kind of like revel in some of the other tropes that were already getting a little old at this point, in my opinion. Doing a ballad that's actually called the ballad, which is not very subtle at all. The environmental song called The Greenhouse Effect, they've got the anti-suicide song, which I believe was probably inspired by that teenage suicide song from the movie Heathers, because Heathers came out in '88. So I think all the guys in Testament probably saw Heathers and then wrote that song, because teenage suicide is a hot topic, And anyway, man, I've heard this record like several times over the years. What's crazy, dude, is the title track and then that little jerk-off instrumental, Confusion Fusion or whatever. Those are the only songs I can actually kind of remember how they go all the way through, and I just listened to this record like a week ago, something like that. So, this Testament record represents a sort of staleness that was kind of infecting thrash as a whole, where it seemed like way too many bands were just kind of trying to sound like Metallica and Megadeth, And on to 1990. All right, man, Souls of Black. This one's actually a little better than Practice What You Preach. And, that's like an updated opinion, having heard it for the first time since probably 8th grade. 9th grade, maybe, I don't know. Still kind of, by the numbers, thrash, and, it's a shame, because, I mean, to be clear, man, there were still a lot of great records coming out in thrash in 1990, obviously, obvious ones, Rust and Peace, you got Morbid Saint, Spectrum of Death, was Coroner Mental Vortex 1990? I don't know, someone correct me if I'm wrong. But there were a lot of good records going on, but a lot of the bigger bands, man, I guess Megadeth being an exception, a lot of the bigger bands were reaching their kind of artistic expiration date. So you got a lot of records that are kind of inoffensive, not terrible music, but it's just background, kind of light sounding thrash. I do give Testament credit for not trying to do their own version of Injustice for All and doing like a really technical, like pseudo technical long song album. But when I think of this period of thrash, you know, stuff like Time Does Not Heal, Impact is Imminent, Act 3. It's like everyone in California forgot how to write memorable songs, man. Even Destruction was trying to do this kind of super professional Megadeth riff salad thing on that fucking Crack Brain record, you know. All right, man, 92. The Ritual. This record, not my thing at all. Worst one so far. All right, so far, you know, there's worse coming. It's basically Testament's attempt at the Black Album. You know, Megadeth had Countdown, Exodus had Force of Habit, Overkill started mixing some groovy shit. You know, it's a weird period in thrash where a lot of the bigger bands just didn't seem to know where to go. You know what I mean? Following Metallica worked well enough for Testament in the 80s, so they tried it with this one. It's boring as hell, watered down, commercial. A lot of people like it. I've seen some people say it's their best. I disagree. All right, 1994, man. Low. This is Testament trying to adapt to the times. You know, we got an album cover that screams like, has an alternative metal kind of vibe, man. You know, like, you know, Anthrax had that Sound of White Noise record that kind of aimed for the same thing, you know, mixing in more of these groovy kind of Pantera-isms, you know. That's what Low is, man. Like, Chuck Billy's really going full force on those fucking kind of Hetfield, kind of 90s angry douchebag vocals. Skolnick has left the band at this point. They got James Murphy. And, you know, I had forgotten he played on this record until I re-listened to this record for this video. Obviously, James Murphy's normally cool. I mean, he does play some really good solos on this record, man, but it's not enough to save the songwriting. I mean, you know, if you want to hear James Murphy, there's Spiritual Healing, Cause of Death, Death Shall Rise, fucking Dreams of the Carry-On Kind. Songwriting here is pretty boring, you know. Although, I mean, James Murphy probably made more money with Testament than some of those other bands. All right, man, next, from 97, Demonic. Okay, so from an artistic standpoint, I respect that it's cool that, you know, a band as old as Testament were embracing like elements of death metal and going back to more maybe evil subject matter and imagery, but the songwriting just don't work, man. I mean, now Gene Hoglan on drums, man, he sounds great. The drumming's great. But Chuck Billy, man, goddamn, he's mixing in like his standard James Hetfield voice, mixing in with like these like really raspy quasi death metal, death growl type vocals. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad they didn't do like a fucking like a Columbine metal album. You know what I mean? Like the techno industrial new metal, that the Columbine music, you know. Because in 97, man, they could have done it, but it's just another boring record anyway. All right, so 99, man, The Gathering. All right, so hey, drumming kicked ass. You notice that right away. They got Dave Lombardo, you know. James Murphy's back on guitar. Steve DiGiorgio on bass. I mean, with a lineup like that, you'd be expecting a rager, you know, man. But and hey, you know, most Testament fans seem to love this one. But you know, man, they're going for that compressed late 90s production, mixing in the half-assed death metal vocals again. And honestly, I know this is probably gonna upset at least one of the people who watch this, but Chuck Billy actually kind of sounds like Rob Zombie at times on this one. Which I'm sure wasn't the intention, but that's just how it sounds to me. I might be crazy. There are some cool musical moments scattered throughout the record, thanks to, I guess, the good ass musicians on it. But the songwriting isn't too cohesive or memorable. But you know, Legions of the Dead, that is actually a pretty good song that I do remember from this one. But Chuck's vocals just don't work on it, man. But yeah, dude. All right, so, and honestly, man, The Gathering in some ways kind of lays the blueprint for how Testament's comeback albums would all go, you know, minus the quasi death metal vocals, man. So I'm just going to go over their 2000s albums all at once. You got 09, Formation of Damnation, Dark Roots of Earth from 2012, which has Native Blood, which is like maybe my least favorite Testament song ever. But people love it. I mean, people went crazy when they play it live. Or when I've seen them play live. Brotherhood of the Snake from 2016, Titans of Creation from 2020. I'm the least familiar with those. It's just in one ear, out the other. You know, I assume they'll do another one this year. It'll probably sound the exact same. If you love Testament's style and you like Chuck Billy's vocals more than I do, you will probably dig these records because they're at least thrash. But I mean, you know, they're all just kind of, to me, man, watered down attempts at playing their 80s style. And their 80s material already had plenty of shit that I felt was a bit watered down anyway. And then to top it all off, you got that obscenely modern production value that every metal band of this age and success level seems to be attached to. So, yeah, I mean, not really into the New Testament stuff. So yeah, that's my opinion on their discography. So once again, shout out to Doyle Death, and feel free to recommend me some more bands to do discography videos about, because you know, it's fun to ramble and talk shit about this sort of thing. You know, if you love Testament, let me know. Maybe you think Low is the best. Maybe you think Demonic's the best. Let me know if you agree, disagree with me on all this shit. You know, the standard YouTube shit. Have a great day.